Grenade by Alan Gratz. Author's Note, pages 257 through 263. Throughout this book, American characters use the word Jap, short for Japanese, to refer to Japanese people. While the use of this term was common among soldiers and the American public during World War II, calling someone a Jap is offensive and disrespectful. I use this word in my book for historical accuracy, but it's a word you should never use. In Japan, as in other places in Asia, people list their family name first, then their given name. Thus, Hideki Kinoshiro would actually be known as Kinoshiro Hideki. To avoid confusion among American readers, I reverse the order of Japanese names in this book to follow Western naming conventions. The Battle of Okinawa began on April 1st, 1945, and lasted 83 days, ending on June 22nd, 1945. It was the last battle of World War II and the bloodiest of the Pacific War. The Americans brought nearly 1,500 ships and more than 500,000 men to invade an island defended by a combined Japanese and Okinawan force one-fifth that size. At the beginning of the battle, the population of Okinawa was just an estimated 450,000 people. Just before the fighting began, the Japanese army encouraged civilians to relocate to northern parts of the island or to evacuate completely. But it was too little, too late. The Tsushima Maru, a Japanese transport ship, left Naha Harbor in August of 1944, filled with Okinawan refugees bound for mainland Japan. But because the Japanese used the same ships to deliver troops and weapons to Okinawa as they did to evacuate refugees, U.S. submarines couldn't know if a Japanese ship was filled with soldiers or civilians. The Tsushima Maru was sunk by the USS Bofin shortly after the Japanese ship left port, killing 1,375 Okinawan refugees, including 777 children. Refugee transports were soon abandoned, leaving around 300,000 Okinawans still in harm's way. The Imperial Japanese Army knew they were never going to hold on to Okinawa, and before the Americans arrived, the most elite Japanese troops were withdrawn to prepare for what everyone assumed would be the eventual invasion of mainland Japan. To bolster their troops on Okinawa, the IJA conscripted 110,000 Okinawans into the army, about one-fourth of the island's entire population. Of that number, around 2,300 were students drafted from Okinawa's middle and high schools. Boys over the age of 14 were first used to dig caves and build airfields. Then, as the conflict drew closer, they were drafted into the Blood and Iron Student Corps, or the Signal Corps of IJA infantry and artillery units. Girls were conscripted into Student Medical Corps and put to work as nurses in IJA hospitals and command posts. Neither group was well trained or well organized, and almost half the young people forced to serve in the Japanese army died in the battle. The Imperial Japanese Army fought a war of attrition on Okinawa, trying to wear down the U.S. forces little by little as they advanced south. The U.S. 10th Army moved forward an average of 133 bloody yards a day for the first 2 months of the battle, little more than the length of a football field. GIs and Marines would fight for days to take a hill, only to find that at the last minute the Japanese army had abandoned the hill and withdrawn to fortify the next one. The U.S. Army conquest of Kakazu Ridge, two small hills linked by a saddle in between them, took more than 2 weeks and cost the lives of hundreds of Americans and thousands of Japanese. Throughout the battle, innocent Okinawan civilians suffered and died. Japanese soldiers often ejected them from the safety of tombs and caves, or forced them at gunpoint to go out for food or water during bombings. The IJA used Okinawans as human shields, strapped explosives to Okinawans, and through propaganda and outright commands convinced Okinawans to commit mass suicide rather than be captured. While some American soldiers tried to be conscientious about the differences between Okinawan civilians and Japanese soldiers, Many more found it safer to throw grenades into caves or shoot machine guns through the wooden walls of houses, killing anyone inside, rather than risk their lives by investigating first. Thousands more Okinawans were killed by American battleships and planes as refugees fled south with the retreating Imperial Japanese Army in what has become known as the Typhoon of Steel. Approximately one-fourth to one-third of the island's entire population died in the battle, including almost every Okinawan male over the age of 18. The Imperial Japanese Army never surrendered, retreating all the way to the southern tip of the island and finally committing suicide when there was nowhere left to run. By the battle's end, 12,274 American soldiers and 110,000 Japanese soldiers were dead. The brutal fighting on Okinawa and the Japanese commitment to fighting to the last man on what they saw as Japanese soil made American soldiers and commanders alike believe that a full-scale invasion of mainland Japan would cost the lives of 1 million Americans and every last Japanese soldier and citizen. Though there is no direct proof, many military historians now believe that the lessons learned at the Battle of Okinawa were a direct factor in the United States' decision to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 2 months later, which prompted Japan's unconditional surrender. The United States occupied Okinawa after the war, finally returning control of it to Japan in 1972. But American military bases remain on Okinawa even today, an important part of America's strategic defenses in the Far East. Okinawa is home to 32 U.S. military installations, which take up almost 20% of the island. The American presence is very controversial among Okinawans. In 2012, the United States agreed to reduce the number of U.S. military personnel on the island, but the bases and ships and soldiers remain. So too do thousands of bombs. According to Okinawa's Fire and Disaster Prevention Unit, several million shells and bombs were dropped on Okinawa by both sides during the battle, and an estimated 5% of them did not explode on impact. Many of them sank into the mud and muck and remained there. From the end of the war until 1981, more than 6,000 tons of unexploded ordnance was discovered and disposed of, and more are found every year. 20 hand grenades and 5-inch shells were found in a public park in Uroso, and an inspection of a new site for a high school in Kadena uncovered 100 rounds of armor-piercing anti-tank shells and 19 hand grenades and naval shells. Officials estimate it may take another 60 or 70 years to clear Okinawa of all the remaining unexploded ordnance, if ever. Many of the family tombs destroyed in the Battle of Okinawa were never rebuilt or were replaced by smaller burial chambers. But Okinawa as a whole has largely recovered and been restored in the decades since the end of World War II, becoming the bright, beautiful vision Hideki sees at the end. The capital city of Naha, which was completely destroyed by American bombs during the war, is a modern, shining metropolis of nearly 350,000 people. Kakazu Ridge is surrounded by apartment buildings. White Beach, where Ray and company landed on Love Day, is now one of the top-rated tourist beaches in the Pacific. Shuri Castle was rebuilt in 1992 and in 2000 was designated as UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Okinawa is a paradise once more, and its people are among the longest lived on Earth. At the southern tip of the island, at the site of the last fighting in the Battle of Okinawa and all of World War II, stands a monument called the Cornerstone of Peace. Dedicated on the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Okinawa, the Cornerstone of Peace lists the names of every single person who died during the Battle of Okinawa, or because of it. Japanese and American and Okinawan, soldier and civilian alike. It is a memorial not to war, but to peace. Not to victors, but to victims. Like Hideki's wall of photographs, it honors the men and women and children listed there not as soldiers or conscripts or refugees, but as the people they were before war swept them away. New names are added every year.